Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Live action.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. Now let's sing a little bit about it. Cowboys of the Osage, riding once again. Always got some time for a friend. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, Cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum and the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, both located historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me. You know, we already got 2 theme songs, and there's a songwriter that's part of this podcast. I think Jimbo needs to write another theme song for the podcast and sing it, make it 3.
Surely 2's enough for one podcast.
Mr. Rodeo Historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Good morning, Jimbo. Good to see you. Who do we have here today?
Hey, Cody, boy, it's another great day in Osage, man. Cody, where can you get one of them buffalo coats from the Buck and Flamingo?
Yeah, I almost wore mine today, but we had a heat wave roll through. It's supposed to get all the way up to 40 degrees, Jimbo.
But it's still a lot of winter left. And I used to drive up through that tall grass prairie working in the oil field in the wintertime a lot, and I've never seen a cold buffalo.
No.
That's just something you don't see.
Keeps them warm in the middle of Yellowstone in the middle of winter.
Right. So get you a buffalo coat if you want to stay warm.
Yep.
But anyway, Cody, we've always got the talent on here, whether it's ropers or craftsmen or whatever. And we've got Mr. Mike Emberson with us, one of the great spur makers in the country. He's from just raised up around Nowata, but lives in Barsville, I think, but just right down the road. And he's one of the best, well-known, beautiful work. I was checking some of his stuff out on the computer, and you talk about some nice stuff with silver and copper, and just really. But you look like good using spurs too. It wasn't just something you hang up, for looks. These are using spurs, cowboy spurs. But anyway, we've got him with us, and he's quite a storyteller, I believe. We're going to get some stories out of him, and we're just glad to have him. Mike, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Well, thank you for letting me be here. I hope I don't embarrass you with my lack of knowledge or with my lack of stories, but I'll do my best.
No, we're glad to have you.
Right off the bat, we almost made a huge mistake right here, right off the bat.
Leaving your phone?
No, I didn't. I don't even. Here's my phone right here.
That's that happens every show. That's just normal.
Yeah, mine rings in.
If it didn't.
Yeah, I stay pretty busy. Normally, a guy like him, you'd introduce him as bit and spur maker.
Right.
No,
he's a specialist.
He's a specialist. Tell us what you specialize in, Mike, and tell us why you chose to do that.
Well, I specialize in spurs, and I'm not smart enough to do anything else.
Okay.
It's just I do spurs. I got the round peg and the round hole. I'm not. A lot of these guys will do a lot of different things, and I've built bits back in the day, but it just never appealed to me. It never appealed to me, and I knew dang good and well with bits, it is such a rabbit hole they go down that no matter what bit you build, they'll say, well, can you do that? But I need that purchase just a little higher, or can you get that port and drive you crazy with all these trying to do everything a certain way. A bit, if you get it a 30-second off, they'll squeal like a pig because it'll pinch a horse's mouth or bloody a mouth or do something. Mm-hmm. Where a pair of spurs, shucks, you can get it a half-inch off and no one will even notice it. You can try not to do that, right, but I mean, right. It's a little bit easier, and that's where I started, and it just feels good. I don't have to think about it. Just go out there and turn the crank, and they hit the floor. I mean, pretty simple deal. I have diversified a little bit. People's asked me for years to build buckles and things like that. And a good friend of mine out in Amarillo, right west of Amarillo, Terry Allward, he's kind of got me doing some pendants, cart buckles, money clips, things like that, which I don't want to do a lot of. I don't even take orders on them, but I'll try to fill the chinks. If I hit a spot in spur making where I get a little tired of it or just I feel like a little burnt out, I'll jump over and work on some cart buckles. And they go well. I mean, you can sell them anywhere. And the main thing is just a little bit cheaper product. Everybody doesn't walk around with a pocket full of $100 bills, but they might have enough to buy a buckler or a pendant or money clip or something like that.
Right.
So I just kind of stay in that niche, and I'm old enough now, I don't want to learn anything else. I'm not a welder. And I've heard so many guys will come to me and they want to become a spur maker. I say, well, I'm a welder, and I'd like to be a spur maker. I'd just soon have someone tell me they're a chef and want to be a spur maker, because welding's about 5 minutes of your day. That's the last you're going to weld. It's not that big a part of it. And I don't know. I've never been a good welder, but I can hog on a pair of shanks. I can weld them hot enough, they're going to stay there forever. But a bit, going back to the bit making, John uses stick welder. But he's an exception to the rule. Most of the bit makers that I know of nowadays will TIG weld, and that's a very finesse type of welding that they can really do a great job. Just never had a touch for it.
Well, they do that mainly because the cleanup is so much easier probably, and such a cleaner way to burn.
It is a cleaner way, less cleanup, but it's more finesse. They can really get that weld exactly where they want it.
But you're going to grind it all off anyway.
For the most part. For the most part. But on a bit, you're like the tube of the bit is thin metal. Yeah. So if you get too hot or stay too long, you got a hole in it. Yeah. I don't know. I just stick with spurs, and that way I don't have to.
When you're welding a shank on a heel band, you're just stick welding it?
No, I use a MIG.
Okay, MIG. Okay.
And it takes more cleanup, but cleanup's not a problem. Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I look like a coal miner when I come in every night. I get aggravated, go down to John's house, John Israel.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to expand on that.
Spur maker that I know that can wear a white shirt.
Right.
And khakis and build stuff. I mean, but file don't make a lot of dust. And a hacksaw doesn't make a lot of dust. But I use grinders and buffers and sanders, so there is a great amount of particulates get up in the air. So, like I say, I come in the evening time, I look like I've been down a coal mine for 8 hours. Yeah. It's a pretty dirty job, but you gotta love it.
But at least they know you've been doing something.
Well, I can fall down and roll around in it if I had to, but wife don't mind.
Yeah. John's the last of a dying breed. I don't even know if there's anybody else out there like him. Mike mentioned a few of his tools. The only tools, John D. Israel, he's just a saint, I think, and a local treasure here in Osage County, and a national treasure. If you don't know who he is, I'm sure you've heard of his style of bit, the Israel. In Israel, it's kind of the Mullen mouthpiece bit that has really became his own mouthpiece. But anyway, his tools are a torch, an old stick welder that he has there that's had for quite some time, a vise,
horseshoe rasp,
and some other files. He does a lot of file work. He uses file work, and he I don't know if he has a bench grinder or not. He may have one there, but I think
there's one over in a corner, but it's not plugged in.
No, it's probably.
Does he even have a plug-in?
It may not. Probably fans hooked into it.
Right.
And he don't use anything else. He uses a hacksaw to cut all his metal.
Yep.
And that's it. And it's just an amazing man. And every now and then, when he would fancy him up, he'd take a stainless steel welding rod, put a little bead down it. And on the rare occasion, he did put some silver on it way back in the day, but you don't see that too much anymore. You just see his plain Janes.
No, he's noted for his bits, but John's made a toe sack spurs in his day.
They're all around.
But
you see them around.
He likes building bits better. And we've always kind of laughed between ourselves. So, John, you build the bits and I'll build the spurs. Now, that'd be just fine. I got tickled. The best compliment that I've ever been paid as a spur maker was John Israel. think we were over at Claremore at the Ranch Rodeo, and he's sitting there in the booth with me. We was visiting. He picked up a pair of spurs, and he said, Mike, he said, those don't even look handmade. And I thought, well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. That's quite the compliment. But he is a dandy. I was think myself, I've told people, if I can do one thing in life, if I can be half as well thought of as that man, I'll feel like I've lived a successful life.
Oh, yeah.
Because he is a true treasure.
I agree with you.
Me too.
His nephew, Ralph Williams, is the same way. They're
Yeah.
just two peas in a pod right there.
Yep.
And his other nephew, Boop. I can just throw them, all three of them, right in together. They're just
Yep.
some of the best people I've ever met.
Yep.
And they're good influences, too.
Yeah. Where were you raised up at, Mike?
I was raised in Nowata, born and raised in Nowata. Went to school there, and being probably one of the smartest children in my family of four, I elected that the best thing in the world is go to the panhandle and go to work in feedlot instead of college.
There you go.
Well, 3 years of that, I rethought my career decisions and finally came back to this country and got employed at Phillips and stayed there 34 years. And
Were you raised up cowboy at all, or in country?
Back in that day,
Yeah.
if you was in the country, your dad always had cows.
Yeah.
Always ran cows, or he used to run some feeders every once in a while. And you'd always be helping neighbors around the area.
Right.
Biggest ranch down there would have been Standee Ranch. I think call it Smoke Rise now, but back when I was a child, Uncle, he worked down there on Standee. But it was a registered operation, and they raised a lot of Herefords down there in that country.
Right.
It's always been in my life. I go back, I was looking at pictures the other day. Mom's dad was born in 76. She was the youngest child of that family, but had pictures of him at I think it's Garden City Rodeo back in the teens. And they had a big parade, and Cousin's got one of the big panoramic pictures of all the cowboys lined up, Model Ts in the background and stuff.
I
and
love those
everything.
pictures.
He was a horse trader, is how he made his living. They homesteaded out in western Kansas, and they homesteaded out there until, I guess, Mom was born. She was little, and they come back in a wagon. Grandpa would take a string of horses up, and he'd trade, and he'd meet back to the wagon. Grandma and the kids would take the wagon, heading east, coming back to this part of the country. And so that's all I ever knowed him to do was trade horses. So Dad's side, his grandpa, or Dad's dad, moved up from Texas to, I went brain dead. Quartermaster Remount Station, Fort El Reno. He was a bricklayer, mason by trade, and he built a lot of them stone buildings and stuff down there for the quartermaster. Grandpa farmed, and Dust Bowl hit, and him and the kids all come up to Nowata County, and that's where they took up root. And years later, then here we come. But just lived out in worked for different neighbors around there. You say cowboying, I don't even remember cowboying that much. It's just everybody took care of business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fence needed fence.
Yeah.
I mean, most guys farm still.
Right.
So it's allowed to spend a week on a tractor disking, or, we got to get the cows in and work. Okay, you do that. I mean, just piddly work.
Yeah.
It's just what you did.
Right.
You didn't think about it. But that was my youth growing up. Like I say, moved out west and spent 3 years in the feedlot for Texas County. And
It's cold out there in the wintertime.
it was cold. That's when I left.
Yeah.
There's
That's
a lot of
when I
good
left.
people out there. A lot of
I
great
loved it.
people out there.
I love that country.
But
I still
Lordy,
do.
it's some hard living. My whole family, they're from Hereford and Clovis.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
It's I liked it. It was one winter day, and out there riding pins, and it was colder than old Billy Ned. And two electricians drive by in a pickup. They're checking the heaters in the water troughs. Gosh, they got the windows all rolled up. And we're just shaking. And come in at break time, come into the office, and I get talking to electricians. What's it take to be electrician. Well, you got to go to school and you got to do this. And I didn't know nothing about electrician. I said, well, can I go watch you? And they said, well, I don't care. And boss come through and said, hey, do you mind if I go with electricians? I don't care what you do. I don't think he thought I was serious. I jump in the truck and I go with him. We put some heaters in the boss's horse barn, and I watched him. Made my mind up. I wanted to be an electrician. Well, I never did finish it, but at least got me out of that country and back in Oklahoma. At least I got back where shade trees live.
Right.
It was pretty bright out there. But on spur making, I started Wes Griffin. A lot of people out there will remember Wes when he was up in this country. He started out working for Bob Blackwood. Bob built rodeo spurs, a lot of rough stock spurs down there in Texas. And George, his boy, and Wes were the same age. They rode bareback broncs together. And he worked down there for Bob for years and learned the trade. And came up in this country. I want to say he went over at Stanbro's at Claremore. He was a bit spur maker. And maybe Allen Ranch down there at Bixby. Had some dealings. But anyways, he wound up across the highway from me. He'd sell stuff to, I didn't know him, but I knew he was new to somebody over there. Well, he come by one day and wanted to do some trading. I thought, okay. I told him what I wanted, and he took what we traded for, and it rocked along and never did hear from him. I'd stop by once in a while and check on it. Didn't see anything. Finally, he's getting real close to the time I needed it, and I stopped by one morning. He said, I don't have it, but hang on. He walks out in the barn, or the shop of his was an old ice house they drug in there. Had no windows, no doors. Had carpet hanging over the windows, carpet over the door to keep the wind out. And you talk about colder than old Billy Ned. It was frosty in there. But he had a set of spurs laying there. Shanks were welded on them, that was all. But he built that spur with the wife's name on it, built two buckle sets, two-piece buckle sets with the kids' initials on it, and I still got home before they got out of bed for Christmas morning. And I was so amazed. How can you work that fast? How can you do something like that? I mean, he was literally like a machine when it come to working. And I said, dang, I'd like to learn how to do that. He said, well, shucks, come on over. A more gracious, generous man you'll never find. And he said, I'll teach you how to build spurs. And I said, oh, Wes, I hate to see you do that. I mean, that's how you're feeding your family. I don't want to, being local, I thought that could sway it. I thought, no. I said, I wouldn't mind learning conchos or buckles. He said, well, sure, I hate building them. You just knock yourself out, I'll show you. So he did. He taught me how to solder, how to saw out silver, and how to, cut out different metal deal to make your pieces. Well, then he moved back to Texas. And I thought, sure wished I'd have paid more attention to spurs. Right. So my learning curve, he was gone then, so I thought, I'm going to build spurs. My learning curve was as flat as that tabletop for years. For years. I mean, I had no input. I just, kind of remember him doing this, and he did that, and he hit it twice that direction. So, that kind of looks like spur. So the first 100 pair of mine, I'd love to melt down into trot line weights because they were some ugly.
That's what everybody says.
But it was the best I could do at the time. But looking back, I wished I'd have got a little more tutelage. When he left, he told me, he said, now all you got to do, he says, you just build all you can build. And every Friday, a trader's going to come by your house. And he'll pick up everything you got built for a $100 bill a piece. My gosh, I thought there'd never be another poor day. I did that for about, 3 or 4 years. Got to looking at the situation, and like I say, I looked like a coal miner. I was dirtier than can be, and that guy just rode in a big car and wearing a white shirt. I thought, what's wrong with this picture? And I finally cracked out. And back then, they had a ranch rodeo before Ben Johnson. Am I talking too long?
No.
Well, look at Jimbo's microphone there. It's messing with him.
Okay.
It's giving him fits. I'm sorry, Mike.
It's alive.
Yeah.
They had a ranch rodeo before Ben Johnson that Saturday. And I thought, I'm going to try. And I gathered up a load of stuff, and I hauled over there and set me up a little table. I'll be darned, people were standing in line. I thought, what the heck? And people that I knew, they didn't live 5-10 miles from me. And they said, well, I marked them back then, I marked them MLE. I couldn't afford a fancy name stamp. I just got some number or letter stamps and stamped them out of my initials. They said, we were told you lived up in northern Missouri. Didn't have a telephone.
Yeah, you're Amish.
Right.
Well, I'll be darned. So that was the end of my wholesale days.
Yeah.
I dropped all that deal and thought, and got double my money. So I thought, shucks, this is a lot better deal. Get to wear town clothes every once in a while. Don't have to look like you've come out of the pit. But been doing it for, I can't tell you how long. It was in the 90s.
Were you still working for Phillips and doing it on the side? Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
You know,
We
the
worked
90s, that don't sound that long ago to me, Jimbo.
I know, but it's 30
it's like
years.
30-something years
I
ago
know,
now.
it's pitiful.
It'd be probably, I'm guessing, the best I can figure is around 25.
Yeah.
And I have to call Wes and ask him how old that one boy was because he wasn't born yet when I started.
Right.
So however old Justin is, year and more, and that's how long I've been building. But I don't know. I worked up, our job up there was almost like a fireman in the fact that we were on 14 days a month and you were off 14 days. Well, I don't know of a fireman, one, that doesn't have a side gig, besides firefighting, and it just kind of lent itself into it that, well, I can build spurs on my days off. I can do what I want to do. And it bled into the fact on nights, I finally asked the boss, I said, hey, you mind if I do any government work on nights? He said, well, I'd rather you do that than sleep. Well, that was your two options. I'm glad. And I'd sit there and saw silver, file rows. You know, the good thing is, positive thing for Phillips, I was more alert. I was up. I knew what was going on.
You're really doing them a favor.
I was doing them a favor by doing government work.
You're right.
And the funny thing is, I thought, now when I retire, my gosh, my production will go through the roof. Hadn't changed one iota. Because once you retire, all that means you don't go to town anymore. You're still working like you always did. And, well, Dad's retired. He can do that. Well, Dad can do this. And I stay busy as I've ever stayed. But my same number, don't change. And they are slacking off the last couple of years. I've noticed that I don't know if I'm physically slowing down. I don't think that. I think I spend a little more time on a piece than I did in the past years. And it's one thing. See, now your telephone's going off. I feel better now.
See, I told you. Told you, just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Ticking time bomb.
I just, I lost my train of thought. That bell must be
Well, you're
timed
talking
out.
about you slowing down a little bit. You're more
So
detailed.
I really pride myself in trying to keep a consistent product.
Right.
The biggest compliment they can give me is that it fits a boot well.
Right.
And that means a lot to me, to spend the time and make sure it fits, looks right.
How do you do that? Do you have to have, are all boot heels the same, or do you have to get their boots, or how does that work?
For the most part.
Right.
For the most part, as long as you got a jig that you can get that heel the right angle, the front part, you just go out anywhere from 3 1/4 is the average. I mean, if I'm building anything stock, 3 1/4.
Right.
Ladies can be anything from 2 3/4 up to 3 1/4. Depends on the boot. Back when I started, the big boots where everybody's wearing ropers, Justin ropers, like a little old bitty thin heel box. Nowadays, more people are wearing custom boots that have a much larger heel box. So that it fits. I mean, I also build everything out of cold roll steel. Just an option I decided to go with. Cold roll, you can bend it. So if you need to squeeze it in a little bit, or if I need to spread it out a little bit, we can get by without any
Now,
problem.
do you cut the bands yourself, or do they come that with?
No, you
cut
cut
them.
everything
How do you cut them?
bandsaw.
Bandsaw.
And you cut everything, the shanks, you buy a big long stick, a 1/2 inch plate, and you saw the shanks, rowels you cut out. Everything's,
Now, the
everything
shanks
is,
aren't a 1/2 inch thick, though, are they? I mean,
my shanks are 1/2 inch.
Are they?
Yes,
Wow.
they are. And I think most people are. I mean, some of your really nice stuff, they might even go 7/8.
okay.
They can be a pretty wide shank, but mine are 1/2 inch.
Yeah.
When I first started, we used 3/8.
Right.
But back then, I was building predominantly team rope and barrel racing spurs, light, and that worked just fine. Now, where I'm at in the big scheme of things, I don't probably build, I bet I don't build 2 pair of rope and spurs a year. I I mean, most of all my stuff goes to working cowboys, and I really like it that way.
What's the difference?
Oh, team ropers all want a little bitty short shank and a little bitty light spur, and I thought, shucks, guys, you're just sitting flat of your rear. What do you care?
Yeah.
That horse don't know how much that spur weighs, but they like a lighter spur. And working cowboys, they want something heavy, something they can not heavy. They want it to be stout. Most of my heel bands are 1.125 rather than, and you can see some guys do 1.25. To me, that's just too massive. There are certain spurs that take 1.25 inch. But my stuff 1.125 is best. 1 inch is just a little too small of a pallet to work with to put your scrolls or your bars or your stuff. 1.125 to me is the perfect size.
How do you round those edges on the heel band with
On a grinder?
Just a grinder, and then touch them up, polish them or something where there's no grinding marks, or how do you?
Spur making ain't nothing more than 55-minute jobs. It's really not hard. It's just getting your jobs in right order. But I mean, you can cut out a set of shanks and bands and rowels. Really, without too much headache, you could build the metal part of it a pair in the morning. By noon, you should have a pair built. The bottleneck happens with the silver. Sitting sawing all the silver. I mean, first you got to go. I'm a little bit technological. I got a computer that's got all my patterns in it, and I'll go there and I'll print off a piece of paper with a picture, stick it on a piece of silver, and I'll saw it out, 2 of them. And then you'll go over and tin the silver, then mount it on the spurs, and then engrave it. So really, me building one day, mounting and engraving the next day. I mean, mounting and engraving does a job on my shoulder and neck, so usually if I get one pair done, I'm done. I'm done for the day. I mean, I've done a pair start from finish in one day. Well, you're a pair. Perfect. We gave away last year for the Ben Johnson bronc riding. I'm retired. I don't look at calendars. And I had it in my mind that Father's Day was next week. Right. And it come up there, and I thought, oh, my, that's tomorrow. So I jumped out there and built that pair in about an 11-hour window. And I come in the house, and, whew, babe, I got them done. I threw them down on the table there. I said, I finished them. She said, what that for? And I said, Father's Day, Ben Johnson. She said, that's next week. Son of a buck. But they were done. They were done. They were done, and that's all that matters.
I know what you mean about not knowing. You know, since I retired, I don't know what day it is. I have no idea whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because you just don't care. I mean, it's all the same.
Every day's a Tuesday.
You know,
they say that every day's going to be a Saturday. No, you don't have weekends anymore.
But you'll have days that seem like a Saturday and they're not. You know, I don't know why that is. But that just goes with being retired.
It's a wonderful life. I wished I'd have done it at 45 now. Yeah. If I knew I was going to be so good at 55, I thought, man, what would it be like at 45?
What about the copper? You touched on the silver. How's the copper to work with?
Oh, copper.
I love your copper work.
Well, and I tried to talk people out of it. I'll get a lot of guys and they want me, I want it all copper. Copper just like a penny. Well, it's going to turn brown in time. Yeah, it looks pretty brand new on spurs, nice and shiny. But I usually use copper for accent, maybe a copper cactus or a copper something just to pop. As long as it's on silver or around silver, it'll kind of stand out. But I've made a lot of spurs. They know they wanted copper from stem to stern. They just dulls. Heaven forbid anybody take their spurs off and clean them. Maybe give them a drink of oil occasionally. Heaven forbid that happens.
I've never even thought about that.
Well, no. Let's just wear them till they wear out and then send them in and get them reriled. But, if they keep them clean and stuff, that copper's okay. It's soft. That'd be the other thing I'm a little hesitant of is that copper's as soft as sterling. And I use nickel. Nickel's a tougher alloy than sterling. Now, sterling is perfect on a bit or a buckle or bracelet. My gosh, absolutely. But on something that's going to be drugged through the mud and the rocks and the gravel, I don't see putting something soft like that. I've seen a lot of those old pairs that use sterling that the silver just wore plumb off. It just feathers away. It's just been wore so much. Yeah. And nickel's just tougher. And plus it's cheaper. So that means I don't have to pass that expense on to the customer. Try to keep everything down as low as possible and just make it a good using pair. And you said earlier about, something to hang on the wall. I would prefer them. I would hate seeing anybody hang something on the wall.
Sure.
I mean, get that something up on your feet and wear it. There's no better compliment than having a set sent back to you that needs new pins, new rowels, because that means they have wore those. And you can open them up and look at them, and the inside of the heel band just slick and shiny. Or you'll see a dark spot. Well, that's information. Oh, I didn't get that heel band shape just right to make sure it's all the way shiny. And boots, my gosh, they play such a factor on which boot maker you're dealing with on their heel boxes. Mm-hmm. There's not a standard. All the time people call me and say, well, I wear a size 8 boot. Mm-hmm. That don't mean squat to me. Mm-hmm. That don't mean squat brand of boot. I mean, there's always issues in there. But if someone needs something really, really exact, I'll sure tell them, take a piece of baling wire and just measure around your heel box. Trace that on a piece of paper, mail it to me, or come by and I'll measure you. There's no science to it. Right. It's just beating steel. It's grinding everything off till you find something that looks like a spur, and there you go. I mean, there's no science to it.
You ever make any stainless steel spurs?
No.
My grandfather, that's what he wore. He had a pair of stainless spurs. I still got them. He was really high.
Blanchard was real big. E.F. Blanchard out in Arizona.
I don't know how long he had them or when he got them, but he always
stainless
around.
And
Byers, they done a lot of stainless steel stuff too.
Yeah, and that's, we didn't even touch on Mr. Byers, but that's really where I got everything. Everything, old J. Martin Basinger put out 3 books. And what they were basically were the order books from Mr. Byers. And all of his orders were handwritten out, picture drawn of what it was, the measurements, how the distance for the rowel pin from the ground. And I wore those things smooth out. Well, 2 of them were on spurs and 1 of them was on bits. But that's where I got most of my ideas. They always told me that a good imitation is better than a poor original. So I've tried to stay with that and don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just keep doing the same old thing. And Mr. Byers, probably one of his most well-known was that Byers number 4. I think every spur maker has built a Byers number 4 shank on their spurs. But the funny thing is that everyone looks different. You can't get 2 spur makers to build one that look just alike. It's the same shank, but that's where I hate to use that even word, the art kind of makes my mouth hurt, but the art of it is how you present it. And then with the silver you put on it. But they all are the same heel band, the same shank, but they still look different. And it amazes me how you can have that much variance in something that's so basic. But I don't know, I enjoy it. I do. That's one thing I guess I'm out there 7 days a week. I may not put in 8 hours, but I'm in the shop. I love it. I just flat love it. That's my happy place to go out and shop. And I guess I got a little crow in me and I like shiny things. So at the end of the day, I can look at that and, son of a buck, I built that. Right. Look at that. I'll be dead gum. Right. And it's like so many makers, it's always the next pair that's going to be pretty. I'll just dream of that pair I'm working on. And when I get it finished and I look at it, it's like, yeah, okay. I'm ready to start on the next pair. And it's just that vicious cycle. You just keep chasing your tail trying to build that perfect piece. And I did go down a rabbit hole this year after Amarillo this fall, the finals. I was visiting some guys, and I kind of got the bite for the turquoise. I thought, by gosh, I'd like to try that. So I went down, I got the tools and got some stones, and I made some stuff. I don't think I've come back maybe 5, 6 pieces, give the kids and grandkids for Christmas. But I looked over there, and there's a scrap pile of jacked up, messed up sterling. I thought, there's no money in this. I'd be better just building spurs. I'm no silversmith. I appreciate it. I enjoy looking at it, but I'm not near the hand to try to build it, and I'm too old to learn anything new, so I better just stick with what I do. What else?
How long have you been going out there to Amarillo to that trade show?
I was very, very fortunate. I retired in 67. 55 when I retired. So I got in, because there's a waiting list to get in there. And I got in the year that I retired. So I was able to get in there, and I've been there since the 12, 13 years. Is how long I've been going out there. I had my name in the pot, and I just hoped and prayed I didn't get in, because you can't hardly sit there with a stockpile of stuff worthy to go out there and just you're not knowing. And back years ago, I didn't have all the vacation I had. I guided elk hunters, worked for an outfitter. We guided elk and turkey and antelope. So all my vacation, 5 weeks, would always go to the outfitter. So I thought if they ever called me, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. You couldn't tell them no.
Yeah.
You have to show up. And but I was lucky enough, like I say, I'd help my obligations were all caught up, and I was able to start going out there. And that's been a blessing like no other, because that show is so spectacular. My gosh, it's everybody's Christmas. They always talk about cowboy Christmas, but for the ranching community, that truly is. That's one show that a lot of your ranch families, that's their only vacation. They stay home all year, but they'll make Amarillo. And it tickles me how that'll be the one place I'll see people first time all year. Jeff Wade, Barnsdall. Only time I see Jeff is at Amarillo.
Yeah.
I don't get to Barnsdall that much, and he doesn't get out. We both stay in our shops. But it's been real good, and I don't know how many, probably 20 years I started doing trade shows. Back then, Wichita Falls was the first one, first ranch rodeo, so it was a big trade show. Abilene was kind of that was really big. That was the good one.
Still is, isn't it? Abilene?
I feel like trade shows have changed.
Yes, sir.
I can remember 20 years ago pulling into one of them and setting up and be sold out by Friday night. Do nothing Saturday and Sunday but ride orders. I mean, there's just a rush for it. The internet,
Oh, yeah.
Ranch World Ads, Facebook, all the different technological things that come into play. Now kids, back then you wanted to go meet the makers. Well, now they almost feel like they know them because they're looking at them on their Facebook account and all that. But luckily I got to go and meet some of the old makers, the Jerry Cates and RF Fords and the older guys that are gone now. I did get to spend time with them, and I'm so glad I did, because they're just really nice guys, really, really nice guys.
Where'd you guide elk at?
Chama, New Mexico. Did the elks in Chama, antelope in Dalhart, and then turkeys in Woodward. And he had land all through there, and we'd go out. And I always liked antelope the best. Just drive around the pickup. Drive out in the pasture. There's one. Keep making circles. You got close enough, and they'd step out and shoot him. Throw him in the truck and go to the processor. That was easy hunting. That wasn't bad at all. Going up and down them mountains, that was a little bit rougher for old flatland boy. But
Did you call the bulls and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. This is a side deal. I worked for Primos Game Calls out of Jackson, Mississippi. I was on their pro staff for about 15 years. So that's what I did pre-working for the outfitters. All my vacation went to them. And I'd do promotions in Missouri, Arkansas, Texas, and Oklahoma, do seminars and calling demonstrations. So, calling's calling. Whether you're calling a turkey or calling a bull, it's about the same thing.
You ever heard elk call, Cody? They make the strangest noise for an animal of that size.
Yeah.
It just
you swear
fascinates
them
you.
cows are birds.
Yeah.
What's
How do
all
they
them-
sound, Jimbo?
Well, I can't do it.
Let's
but
hear it.
You can do it. Probably.
Oh, not my natural voice.
Yeah.
Can't make no money on
like
that.
no, that's a bull.
The bull's bugle.
I'm talking about them cows that it squeals or
Just a chirp.
chirp or something, just a real high pitch, like a bird, more like a bird than a.
You'll swear it's a bird when
Yeah.
you first hear it, but it's a cow.
It
It is.
strange.
I like that elk meat. I know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord, yes.
That stuff don't taste anything like a deer. I'm not real fond on the deer meat, but
Well, and
that elk
antelope.
meat's so much
I've
better.
had some antelope that wasn't fit for the dogs, but we were real fortunate. We had like 200,000 acres.
Wow.
At least it was several ranches lined up together, and 100,000, not 200, 100,000. But we were right next to Tex line. Well, there's a processor there, so we could shoot an antelope, be on the ground, and within 20 minutes, You could have it at the processors. And, that's where when they're processed right and quickly and not hung around the pickup for 4 hours and all that, it tastes just good as anything else. You get all the silver skin off of it, put enough green chilies on it.
Yeah.
it'll work
All the
out.
people I've heard turn down or run down antelope meat are those people that grew up on it during the Depression. Had to eat it all the time.
Yeah, it's got a sagey taste.
Yeah.
It does. It can get less belly goat. It just
Right.
get a little rank, but if you process them quick and do a good job of it, they're not bad.
Yeah.
They're not bad at all. Surely not.
That elk hunt's fun. I've killed a couple of elk. And
It's a
a lot
good
of
time. Very good time.
Crockett Bitten Spurs, one of their very first shops was right here in Pawhuska.
Yes, it
if
was.
not the first shop. It's being debated right now.
I always heard that. Didn't know if it's Pawhuska or Dalhart. Was that the?
Well, there's
two that was-
there's some evidence coming out of Magdalena, New Mexico.
Okay.
But it's in Crockett's writings, Pawhuska was his first shop. So I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Well, I'd claim it.
Yeah,
If he said it, I'd
well,
claim
he
it.
was here for sure. That's all that matters to
You
us.
bet. Absolutely.
Well, that guy sure changed the game, didn't he?
Oh yeah, there's so many Crockett's and Kelly's and all that. I mean, they made some real advances in it. I mean, because years ago there's a lot of cast spurs and stuff, and then they got to baking those ones, and they just did a wonderful job. I mean, got everybody started doing it, and then I think Byers. I'm not going to say he's the first one that really got people going, but he's pretty much the king.
Yeah.
If you talk about prices, you throw a pair of Byers out there, they'll bring as much or more than anybody else in the country.
Kate's or those big time Spurs.
Yeah, they really are. Like
Crockett, he started off forging his spurs, and then he became one of the very first mass
Yes.
production operators to make bits and spurs for feed stores and stuff.
That's it. He got the price down, can duplicate the same product and get in many people's hands and keep going.
But they were making spurs way before that, mass produced, like for the cavalry and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder who were making those.
Why'd they make them out of brass back then?
Yeah, they were cast. And, that Anchor Company, that's one name that comes to mind.
Oh, yeah,
They had the little Anchor brand on it, and that was up in, they have to ask old Charlie Kopkers come by. I don't know the history on all this
Yeah,
stuff,
we
but I
don't
want to
either.
say Massachusetts or somewhere back far up northeast.
You can make some up.
Oh, yeah, tell the bigs, don't let the truth get involved.
Some of their mass produced stuff, that Anchor's pretty good looking stuff. Some of their old.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, I'm not a snob on that. If a guy can't afford a pair of handmade custom spurs, I have no problem with them wearing them Atwoods or Par Trade. Well, I don't care. They're going to make horse go just as fast. It don't matter. I mean, if they can't afford it, get what you can afford.
Or they'll get you bucked off just as fast.
Or just as fast,
I bet
absolutely.
there've been more people bucked off from their spurs than probably any other reason.
I used to get my feet back behind me and get them up in
it was
the
easy
flanks
to
there.
do when
doing
you're
both.
roping.
Yeah,
And
roping.
you can see that. And my grandpa would say, "You spurring him too far." Or they'd always look, and you can see the marks back there by
Yep.
their flank.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't spur him back there. Hell, you didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. But on the same token, I'll get guys that's, 6 foot, and they'll want a little old bitty. That roper shank was big for years and years. Just a little old, buyers called it a polo shank. Just a little old teardrop, little old short thing. And everybody wanted doggers. A lot of the bulldoggers wanted that. And big long-legged kid, and I think, there's no way that spur can touch that horse.
Right.
There's you're too long-legged. You need to get a shank that's up there that you can actually do that. But, I just build what they tell me.
What are cutter spurs? I hear them talk about cutters.
Just a taller shank.
Just taller.
A lot of them will call a Clapper 78 or something like that. Well, I go back a little farther. Byers had one before Clapper did. But Byers did a lot of that stuff. And Mr. Clapper says, you got a lot of his information from Mr. Byers. He kind of trained him in some different aspects. But just a taller shank, a little more lift. They don't want to be sitting there flogging on one. They won't be able to just move their feet and get where they need to be without doing a lot of leg movement.
Strap buckles to the inside or the outside.
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 Well, I know, but say that on Facebook and you get a lot of pushback.
They're
different
nuts.
parts of the country.
They're backwards.
I know
Well, they
they
just
are.
don't know.
I know.
That's
they
the
don't know any
problem. They
better,
just
do
don't know. That's how they put them on. So
What
it
side-
worked out for them.
What side of the road do they drive on?
Yeah, I know.
Not saying they're wrong, but
Right. But
No.
I've seen some pretty good arguments. over
Really,
there.
yeah. They'll argue about anything on
Oh, I
Facebook.
know.
I saw
I
a guy the other day. He put a picture of a glass of water, and he said, "Let the arguments start."
Yeah.
half full, half empty.
But they didn't
Yeah.
want the buckle on the outside because it was hang on stuff, brush
Yeah.
and stuff, you know. But my grandpa would whip me if I put the buckle on the inside.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
I get it.
It's whatever works for you.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that one, Jimbo.
Well, we'll hear some feedback on this. There'll be some people out there.
Yeah,
saying
let us know
inside.
if you put your buckles on the inside or the outside on your boots.
Let my podcast be the most argumentative of all the podcasts. I was hoping to be the shortest podcast on history, and that's going to be the most.
What about Billy Clapper? Holy moly, he's almost like in the status of Byers and all of them now, and he's still with us.
He's still with us, still making some stuff. I saw him this fall out of Amarillo. He just does a wonderful, wonderful job. I mean, still does the one-piece spur, and that's coming back. There's a lot of guys. Cotton Elliott's a gentleman down there that's really promoting the one-piece spur, and a lot of young guys are jumping right on board. But to do that, you really need a whole different set of tools, trip hammers and things like that to make it work. And I admire it. I built one pair of handmade one-piece spurs. They're still on my desk over at the house. I'm still figuring, the best I can figure, they're going to have to cost $25,000 with the amount of hours I have in it. I thought, I can't do this. It's a slow process, unless you have the trip hammers and the equipment to do this stuff. But, Mr. Clapper still does the one piece and just does a beautiful, beautiful job. He does stainless occasionally. He's done some stainless work. Another maker that's a friend of mine that's very prolific in a lot of that stuff and has helped me a bunch is Terry Allward. I mentioned him earlier. Terry bits, spurs, buckles, pendants. He's very diverse in what he does. And he does some really, really good work and in big demand because he's one of the few that can take an old pair and make it and build a mate and make it look like it came. I mean, he's got the talent and the ability and the knowledge that he can take that or repair an old pair, and he's very, very good, very knowledgeable.
What about Pat Vaughn?
Pat, pretty prolific.
I think he's going to go down in the history books as one of the greats.
There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them that ought to. Pat's built a tow sack full of stuff. Does a wonderful job. But there's a lot. Jerry Cates, I don't think gets near the attention that he needs or deserves. Because Jerry, my gosh, he raced right up there with John as far as I'm concerned. I thought the world of Jerry Cates. Terry and him worked some together. He said that Jerry never went to the shop that didn't plan on finishing something that day. Every day you finish something. And that was a big inspiration to me. Originally, I couldn't understand it. I thought, well, how in the world can you build a pair of spurs every day? He said it may not be spurs. It might be something else. But every day you finish a product. And I thought, just kind of a goal for me to try to do that. And I think that's when I diversified into the buckles, money clips, pendants, something. Just at the end of the day, have something in your hand you can go, my gosh, I finished that. Don't look very good, but I finished it. And I strive to do that. Not got there yet, but I try.
You know, a guy I always thought made some really good cowboy using stuff. Sam Jenkins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sam Jenkins.
Absolutely. Did some really good stuff. Back in that day before the technology, the guys would be really big, but it was in their 100-mile radius. They built for everybody.
Yeah.
But there was no Facebook and all that stuff to shoot it out over the airwaves. So they really did a fantastic job in their group of people. If they were in business now, my gosh, that would be like now. Their stuff would be just up there making a tow sack.
You talked about going to Amarillo, the trade show, and that's a highlight for you every year and a lot of other people. Well, that thing seems to be really catching on, getting bigger and bigger every year. Just the whole association in general, working cowboys. seem to be getting more popular. You're seeing them
I think
a lot. You're seeing them working cowboy events on TV
And
now.
cowgirl, art of the cowgirl, and all that stuff.
Going back to
just
tradition.
finally getting back to their roots, and they're getting the publicity and the notoriety that they can get out in the public. The WRCA's done a wonderful job, having the sanctioned rodeos around the country where they get a shot to go to the finals. At the finals, my gosh, I've been very fortunate to be able to build the reserve top hand spurs for 11, 12 years now, and maybe longer. But that's big to me, to get to build that knowing that some cowboy's going to get that spur. So you always try to build them just a little bit nicer. I mean, I try to build every pair as good as I can, but when it comes to something like that, you think, well, you better engrave in the steel, and you better do something. And because you're also among your peers. They've got it now this year, they've got a big stock trailer with the outside's windows, display rack in behind the trailer, and they can sit and hang all the prizes. They give the bits and spurs and different things. My gosh, you got a lot of eyeballs on that, so you don't want to send some yellow dog piece of junk out there. You try your very best to do good, but no, they really have. They've made a lot of advancement. The media's been real good to pick them up. I think they realize the entertainment factor involved in that. I mean, they've been rodeo forever, but see, the events that they put out are so different. It's just kind of a whole new deal. Now, people are really jumping onto it. They certainly are.
Ours is really coming along for this year. We got Jake Hooker.
Really?
Going to be headlining Ben Johnson Days this year. Going to be playing Saturday night after the Ranch Rodeo.
Shucks, I usually go home. I'm tired, but I might have to stay this time. I have to get a room at the casino.
Yeah. Luckily, we got a casino for you to get a room at now. Yeah, what do you think about our rodeo we've been putting on the last few years there?
Fantastic.
Really coming on.
Fantastic. You all have done a really, really good job. First year is a little bit like the Dirty 30s, a little dusty.
Yes, sir.
But after that, your guys have come in and got that ground packed almost like cement. The weather's been good. We've been blessed with some decent weather.
It's a little hot that time of year.
Little iffy. Oh, it's going to be hot at home, too. It's not like you turn it up.
Yeah.
But it's been a good show. A lot of people coming to it. And I'm sure it's just going to grow. I think every year we'll tweak things that needs to be changed or adjusted in different ways. But it's been a great show. And like I say, that's really the only ones I go to now. Years ago, off the subject, I went back to it. I used to go to Wichita Falls, Abilene, Claremore, and Abilene was so well thought of back then. But now all I do is just go to Pawhuska, Ben Johnson Days, and then always hit the Lazy E's, Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association's range roundup, and then Amarillo. And that's the only places I go. I found in life that it's easier to sell than it is to build. You can stay on the road and just sell them left and right, but sooner or later you got to go home and build that stuff. So you need to I brought my circle in a little bit where those three will keep me as busy as I want to be and don't want to kill. Years ago, I was like 2 years behind. My gosh, order book that big. That about drove me crazy. Finally got where I wouldn't carry my book. People say, I need to order a pair of spurs. Nah, I'm sorry, I don't have my book with me. You call back and we'll get together. And I finally got it squeezed in. And the only reason I didn't is because I hated to take an order and then 2 years from now fill that order because I'm liable to have a lot better ideas. A different shank that would be better, a different silver pattern, a different this. So I thought, if I can get it into 6 months to a year, stuff's going to taste fresh. So, you try to draw up new shank designs every year, something new, change it, tweak it, add a shaft guard, take a shaft guard off, whatever, or a new silver pattern. So I like to stay a little bit fresher. And these rodeos are spread out enough, whatever I can build that I can take there and it's gone, and build some more for the next one and just keep going down through there. Now, on spurs, I thought about this the other day when I was trying to figure out what in the heck am I going to talk about here for a full 10 minutes. And I thought the change in spurs since I started. When I first started out, the big thing was Chihuahuas. That was the hot ticket. And 2-inch, 3-inch rails. That was everybody wanted big rails on Chihuahua shanks. I built enough of them to choke a Georgia mule. I mean, I've built a bunch of them, and I don't ever want to build another one because that's a lot harder. I got the same money. I never was smart enough to charge more when it harder work, but nowadays it seems like they've gone smaller. 1.5 inches is probably the baseline on any spurs. You might build 1.25 inches. You might build 1.75 inches. But it's very seldom do I do any now that's 2-inch. Very, very seldom. And it tickles me. I'd be happy if everybody used a 1/2-inch rowel because I don't wear that rowel pin near as fast. And that just saves me work because the great big ones, they were eating them rowel pins up. Year or 2 years, they would be wore plumb out. Well, someone's got to change them. I always felt like if you build them, you need to lick your own calf. And a lot of makers don't like to re-rowel. And I get a lot of spurs from guys. They'll mail me that somebody else built them. Like, well, it's just time. What's time to a monkey? I'll do it. But the smaller rowels, they just last longer, and I get tickled. Get some spurs in every once in a while. You can tell how many hours they spend in the feed truck because the inside of that shank will be smooth off from sitting in the floorboard bouncing. And it's like, gosh darn, guys, take them things off or
what do you
change
need
boots.
spurs for?
Yeah, what do you?
Well, you don't want to take them off.
Right.
Ever.
Well, you got to go to lunch with your spurs on.
I went a good majority of my life, Jimbo, where if I left the house, I had my boots on, and if I had my boots on, my spurs were on those boots. So
yeah,
I know what he's talking about there.
No, we get back. I never did touch on this, and I owe a lot to her. And I married Sheila Yoakum back in '82, and she's from a rodeo family. George Allen, Rick, Sheila. That's all they ever did was rodeo.
They're pretty known for making stuff too.
Oh,
the whole bunch of them.
Brother,
George makes stuff.
Rick
made stuff. What about those roping dummies George made though? Holy moly, those are the greats.
He made a toe sack of them. He's out in Arizona now. He's moved out there, and I guess he's back to making them again.
Good.
He had a shop up there at Juan for years, his home place, and he'd go up there, stay out in Arizona for 8 months, and he'd come back and build and go back out. But he sold a toe sack of them roping dummies, and Rick, the saddles and all the stuff he's built over the years, got into furniture, finishing furniture, all leather and stuff. He's done a wonderful job.
They make saddle for the Ben Johnson champion.
Yep. And like I say, the wife's done a lot to just get me to this point. She's enabled me to sit and go out and work. So I got to give her some credit for always having my back on this stuff. But it just, and my kids, when we were little, getting on her, the kids, they rodeoed. She'd haul them to all them junior associations, and both the boys roped. The oldest one, Rod, he finally branched off. It wasn't his thing. Had a lot of natural talent, had a lot of ability. It wasn't his thing. The youngest son, Gene, he was like a bulldog. If he was awake, he had a rope in his hand, roping dummy. He had little black plastic roping dummies. He'd sit there in the living room floor. Every night, just sitting there roping. And he won quite a bit through the years and very consistent roper. But now he's got a set of kids, so now that's what he's doing. He's chasing them to the OJRAs, hauling them. They just got back from a big barrel racing clinic down in Texas last weekend that Charmaine James put on. And no, everybody's still doing it. It's just whenever the wife was doing so much hauling, somebody had to pay the gas bill. So Dad usually stayed home, and I did the working, and they'd go take off and do stuff. But that's okay. That's what they enjoyed, so I was glad to do my little part in it. And what little roping I did, I was always well thought of in the roping arena because I was always consistently adding money. They always made money when I went.
Yeah.
And I finally come to that conclusion. I thought, I can't out-rope you. I'll build spurs and get your money that way.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a historic rodeo area you live in, and it still is. You still got Coleman Proctor from that area. Set the world record in team roping and got flagged out this year, and then Billy Jack.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I don't even know who all else. There's more I know.
Post track.
Yeah, you got the post tracks over.
Oh, yeah,
Terry.
little Terry's still over there. I saw him just the other day.
You know, that was one of our biggest podcasts, Jimbo.
I don't know. I missed it.
Somebody told Jimbo the other day, said, Jimbo, that's just one of my favorite podcasts y'all
I
ever
wasn't
did.
even there.
He was sick that day. He was sick that day. We had to have someone else fill in. But
Well, little Terry can talk. He's pretty good at it.
well, shoot. What else you got for him, Jimbo?
If you're making a Mount Rushmore of spur makers, who'd you put on it?
4 names.
4 names.
4 names. Well, Adolph Byers. That's pretty much it. I'd have to put Clapper. I'd put Cates. I'll tell you one we've not mentioned, and I thought he's made some really, really nice stuff, and that's Ron Tolson. Ron passed a couple of years ago, but he's one he did some really nice spurs. He could do the bits. He could do everything. He was very, very, very talented. And that's real quick. I'm sure I missed somebody I shouldn't have missed, but that's the ones that have made an impression on me that, Mr. Byers passed before I ever come
What about
around,
McChesney?
but still his history and being able to look at those books and seeing the order forms and look at this number 1 pair of spurs and price was $10. You're thinking, son of a buck, that seems cheap. But, just a poor cotton farmer down there trying to beat out something and make a living. So that's what he got. But that's who I'd go with myself. I mean, that's 4 people that I've got a lot of respect for. And don't know.
Pretty good list.
How do they get a hold of you? Or can anybody get a hold of you if
Not
they want
often.
to order a pair of spurs?
Not often.
Gotcha.
Not often.
You got a Facebook or anything?
The kids got me on that Facebook, but I don't do much with it. They want to call me, they could, but I stay behind. The best thing I tell people, I'll be at Ben Johnson this spring. I'll be at the John Israel trade show. They want to order something, come by. I'll be glad to sit down and visit with them. It's always better if we can be face to face, because they try to texticate me them pictures, and I want something like this, and I'm fumble fingering trying to get something back to them, and Lord, where'll I be a mile apart? So if they can come to the show and sit down, we can they need to come anyways.
Yeah.
They need to come to it. It's a heck of a rodeo, heck of a show. Stay all night and go to the Ben Johnson the next day. But that's the best way. I mean, if they had to call me, they could look me up on that some way.
We've got Justin McKee. He's coming in to announce the Ben Johnson
That's
this year.
big time.
That's great. That is great. No, I can't say enough good things. I think y'all done a wonderful job. I really do.
What do you think about this gallery here? You're sitting in it. What do you think about some of this work in here for sale, Mike?
I'm not even good enough to sharpen these boys' tools. I mean, my goodness, kind of put me behind some old stuff back there. It's just like,
Some old junk.
wow.
Ernie Marsh made those.
Yes.
His brother Jesse Marsh made those.
My
That pair of
gosh, it's
bits.
spectacular. And I admire the dedication they have to do something like that. I mean, that's not just go turn a crank and hit the floor. Them boys have to work in days and weeks and months of working on a piece. And that's, to me, is very impressive. I don't have the attention span. I don't have. If I'd have to do anything more than 2 days to it, I don't know what I'd do to it. Rub it with a toothbrush and sing it lullabies? I don't know what I'd do to it. You get the sunbuck built, you put it on a rack, you go on down the road. But I appreciate the artist in them. I'm not an artist. That's one thing Ron Tolson used to say, is I'm a tool maker. That's the way I look at it. I'm a tool. I make slow horses go a little faster, and young cowboys look a little punchier, but I'm a tool maker. I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I mean, I see a lot of these guys, they'll sit down with a pencil and a napkin and, well, gosh, they can just draw a perfect scroll around the coffee table. I look like Ned in the first grade reader. I'll get a big chief and I'll go through 50 pages before I finally get a scroll that looks kind of like it should look like. And I'm just not an artist. I see kind of things in squares and not in circles. So a lot of my spurs will have bars. I mean, that's the old school way of doing it, is putting silver bars
I
on
like
one.
that look.
I still do.
Personally, and I
That's
like
old
the
school,
wheat.
but
I
I
really
like it.
like the wheat cut. It's one of my favorite engravings. Honestly,
I bragged years ago. I said, I'm going to be the last man cutting wheats. But it's kind of gone full circle. They went off in these fancy scrolls and stuff, and I see the trends. Guys are coming back to the bars and wheats. I think they did that, and I think, honestly, I think they realized that, my gosh, I've put a week into this piece. How can I justify that? So they're realizing maybe I need to tighten it up. And a lot of your makers are going back to wheats, bars and wheats. So
Well, it's
it'll
classic.
never go away.
Those bars
It's simple,
are good, I think.
and it looks good.
Yeah, it does.
By God, it just
Probably one
a
of the-
timeless style. Both of them.
Prettiest pair I ever built. That Barbie boy down there. He said, Mike, I want you to build me a pair. Nothing but bars, no engraving. And I, what? No. I said, okay. I built it, and I was so ashamed. I thought, that's not going to be right. You've got to engrave them bars. Well, when I finished and gave that to him, I got to admit, that might be my favorite pair I ever built. And it's most plain, simple thing, but the simple beauty of it came out where it's like, gosh dang, that's nice. I've never done it again. But that one time, and I was impressed. Yeah, one time I got the great idea. I was going to reinvent the wheel. Had a pair of spurs, and I started at the rowel. I engraved into the steel of the rowel, wriggles and wheats. I started on the tip of the shank, and I went all the way down that heel band, wriggle a line, cut a wheat, wriggle a line, cut a wheat, both sides. Even the button covers, wriggles and wheats. When I finished that pair, I told that boy at the bottom, said, I'll never do it again. Oh, you say that. You'll go home and build a pair tomorrow. I can promise you won't. I started out the engraver 3 inches long, and that sumbug wasn't a 1/4 inch long. I kept snapping them corners off, and I just resharpened it. And I was in so deep I couldn't quit. I just had to keep going with it. But I learned my lesson there. That wasn't no fun. Got that off my checkoff list. When I first started, I really had a barrel. I'd build something. Oh, it'd be crooked as a dog's hind leg or something be off, and I'd throw it in the barrel and forget it. I laughed one time. I thought, yes, someday archaeologists are going to dig up this, and what culture did all this twisted metal? What was that supposed to have been?
It's like an arrowhead dump.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty crude. Pretty crude. But they always told me, said, you can tell when you're doing pretty good as a maker when you can fix your screw-ups. And I'm getting better at that. I've learned some lessons. Like, well, I can get around that. I can work around it. Because you're going to screw something up just sure as the world. Part of it.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you coming on today.
My gosh, I got through without passing out.
Said he couldn't talk. Well, he did a pretty good
We
job.
talked well over an hour.
I know.
Wow. When I do get started, I get a little windy. I won't say nothing for the rest of the day, I can promise you. I'll go to the shop and close the door and turn the radio off. Just sit there and quiet.
You know, we've only had one other person as nervous as Mike do the podcast, Jimbo, and it was another bit and spur. It was another bit maker, spur maker, John D. Israel.
Right.
When he got done, what did he say, Jimbo?
He said, Jimbo, I was so nervous I was just shaking.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that.
Well, you settled in good. Now you're just an old hand at this, Mike. So,
Just keep chipping away. You know, go back to it. You're never done. You're never done learning. Every day, you'll learn something new. Maybe just a different way of holding something that makes it a little faster, or it's a prettier look. So you never become a master. You just keep working at it. And when your tickets punch, you say, well, that's the best I can do.
you sure seem like you got a good attitude on life.
Well, like I say,
Most of the time.
I try to pattern myself after Uncle John.
There you go.
You try to be, every day's a good day. I always tell you, if you wake up and keep that bar really, really low, you're never disappointed. Just always don't expect much, but appreciate what you do get.
Well, thanks for coming on, and
Well, guys, I appreciate it.
get to the Ben Johnson this year. Come see Mike. Father's Day weekend. It's going to be a heck of a weekend. Justin McKee's coming in. That's going to be fun. Jake Hooker's coming in. More importantly, Mike Emberson's going to be there.
Mike Emberson's
telling good stories right there.
I'm not going to move my booth this year.
No, you're
Usually
right.
set me right there at the bandstand. I want to keep my booth open so I just turn around and watch them.
Done deal. Done deal. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Be sure and like it, share it, give us a comment, and come see the museum and the turquoise store right over here in Pawhuska.
Yep. Get you one of them buffalo coats.
That's right. See y'all next week.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
told stories like long lost friends. Rodeos and late night bends. History before our time. Round pens and pasture rides. Cowboys of the Osage.